Wow, can you believe it, friends? We're already hitting episode number 4. This is absolutely crazy. This journey has been quite a journey, and let me tell you, it's an adventure. It's an adventure, and I'm so grateful and appreciative that you're tuning in and staying with me, and you hit that play button to continue on. And so, all I got to say is, welcome back. Welcome back, right? Remember the song "Welcome Back, Carter"? All right, so today's episode is titled "The Space Between Purpose and Paycheck," and honestly, this episode is gonna sit at the heart of why this podcast exists. This episode is going to give the clarity on why I have decided to establish and start pushing out and creating episodes for this podcast, and this is kind of like where the meat and potatoes start to come in. Uh, this is where you're going to find out the ingredients about this whole entire podcast and its purpose and why it exists. So, buckle your seatbelt, my friend. Get your cup of drink that you want to drink. A cup of drink, what does that mean? Get your drink, sit back, relax, and just tune in and just join me in this conversation. So, because this space exists, and we're talking about the in between, it's the place where most people either rush, retreat, or abandon themselves, right? They rush, they retreat, or they abandon themselves. And it doesn't have to be that way. Let me say it doesn't have to be that way. So today we're going to talk about what is this space really is and why it feels so uncomfortable and how to live here without panicking or betraying your values. Okay? Again, we're going to talk about why it's uncomfortable. How do you live here without the panic like I've been going through and feeling that you're betraying your values? So, the space between purpose and paycheck is not a failure state. It's not a mistake. It's not a delay. It's not a sign that you did something wrong. This is the transition state. Okay, the space between purpose and paycheck is a transition state. You've already outgrown who you are, but who you're becoming fully hasn't been stabilized yet. And therefore, that's the gap. Right there, this is what most people don't know how to sit with. I was struggling and trying to sit with this. And so, basically, in kind of a way, this podcast is my therapy. It's kind of like I'm coaching myself, right? I'm coaching myself. This space does feel uncomfortable because it removes two things at once. It removes the certainty of the old life and the validation of the new one. In the last episode, I talked about how a lot of people carry the old self or the old life from 2025 or years after that into the new one. And then by the end of the year, again, we're finding that we just repeated last year. Because why? We were afraid to step into this space where we were afraid to step into the middle, right? And validate this new self. You don't get the paycheck security you used to have. If you once you move into this new identity from purpose to over paycheck, you don't get the paycheck security, friend, that you used to have. But you also don't have the visible results of alignment yet either. So your nervous system, what we've been talking about, keeps asking, where's the proof? Where's the proof? And in all honesty, when the proof doesn't quickly arrive, the mind fills the silence with fear. The mind is saying, okay, the proof is not here. You haven't had any sales yet. You haven't had any coaching clients sign up. Your ebooks are just ebooks. They're standing there. There's no profit. You keep checking your wallet, but nothing shows. You still see that zero balance. And here you are, already so many days in from your transition. You're failing. I mean, those are some thoughts that have run through my head, friend. Right? Some thoughts. My mind will say, well, you're going on live and you're doing this and you've started this podcast and every day you're getting up and you're saying today's the day, but you're not seeing, you're not seeing anything. Where's the proof? And what happens is that when the proof doesn't arrive quickly, the mind starts to fill the silence with fear. And it's not because you're weak. No, 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 friend. It's not because you're weak. It's because uncertainty is unfamiliar. Fear is thriving under the uncertainty. So, one of the biggest dangers in this space that I'm discovering for myself and I want to share with you is it's the urgency. I discovered that I had this urgency to monetize fast. I had this urgency to prove that I didn't mess up. And I had this urgency to prove that I'm safe again. But urgency doesn't come from purpose. Urgency comes from the fear of trying to regain the control. Basically, it's saying is that I tell myself that God, source, creator, universe is in control. I just speak what I want. I start doing my inspired actions and I'm going to have what I desire. But what it is that I'm not allowing God, source, creator, universe to do the work. I'm trying to take control of the work because God, source, creator, universe takes care of the how and when. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take control of the how and the when as well instead of the what. So I'm trying to regain that control. But when you rush in this phase, you don't actually build aligned income. You recreate old patterns in a new setting. And that's how people end up burned out again, just under a different name. Or they end up going back to the 9-to-5 job. They go back to the paycheck security and they put their purpose back in the box, or they just shove it to the side and say, you know what, we'll try again sometime later. I need to have the security. So there's something important to name. When you are doing purpose over a paycheck and you're in the in-between, it doesn't mean you're going backwards. Because there's less structure, you might feel that there's some stagnation. You feel less of an external validation. You feel less predictability. And there's a lot more silence. But know something. Know that silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. Silence is like a powerful key component in all of this. What silence is doing, what this phase is doing, is this is where the identity is recognized. This is where the identity is reorganizing. This is where we are recalibrating our nervous system. And this is where discernment sharpens. And that work doesn't look productive on the outside. Because we live in a world where instant gratification, or as that one question said in the last one, is where's the proof? This in-between phase work may not look productive on the outside, but it's happening internally. So often the phase, people tend to compromise this. What they'll do is they'll lower their standard. They begin to ignore the intuition. They start to say yes to things that feel off just to feel safe again. But I want to tell you something gently. And I'm going to say this very gently. Survival decisions made from panic often recreate the very misalignment you left. Let me say that again gently. Survival decisions made from panic often recreate the very misalignment that you left. So what is the goal of this phase? The goal of this phase is not to escape it. The goal of this phase is to stay intact while moving through it, friends. Stay intact while moving through it. Living well in this space between purpose and paycheck means learning how to do the following. It's learning and teaching you how to slow down the internal urgency. Boy, that's a big one for me. I've been really learning how to slow down the urgency. It's allowing you to regulate fear without suppressing it. That's another key component that I've been going through. I've been learning how to regulate my fear without suppressing it. I've been learning how to be stability without self-betrayal, being stable and not, again, not betraying my own self. And I've also been learning how to take small, grounded steps instead of dramatic leaps. Because all those small little steps are so powerful I don't need to leap. I think of the quote that if you want to walk 1,000 mile, the first thing you need to do is take one step forward. And every step you do, whether it's huge or small, is going to get you to where you want to go. And sometimes the step might be a leap bound. Sometimes the step might be just one step today, right? This is not a passive phase. This is an intentional one. It's where we say that the discernment becomes more valuable than the speed. When you decide to go purpose over a paycheck, that's probably the biggest thing, is that the value that you're going to find is that what you're going through and the process and the phases that you will encounter and deal with, they're going to be so much more valuable than how fast you got there. So if you're listening to this and thinking, well, I feel suspended, or I don't know what comes next, or I'm scared I'm wasting time. Trust me, those are questions I've had before. I want you to hear this clearly. You're not behind, you're not failing, and you're not required to rush for your becoming. But I do want you to understand this, that the space that you're in right now is only temporary. But how you maneuver and move through it, now that's what's going to matter for you. Okay? So I want you to stop saying to yourself, when will this end? Troy, stop telling yourself or asking yourself, when will this end? Let's reframe that question. I want us to say, what is this phase teaching me about who I'm becoming? That's a powerful question. What is this phase, the in-between, between purpose and paycheck? What is it teaching me about who I am becoming, this new identity? Because this is where boundaries are formed. This is where the value is solidified. And this is where you learn to trust yourself without the external reassurance. And that trust becomes the foundation for your aligned income later. Let me repeat that again. So when you ask yourself, what is this phase teaching me about who I'm becoming? It's going to build the boundaries. It's going to solidify your value. And you're going to learn to trust yourself without external reassurance. And then the trust will become the foundation for aligned income later. Purpose and paycheck are not enemies. Purpose sets the direction. Paycheck provides support. But when the paycheck leads, purpose shrinks. But when purpose leads, the paycheck must be rebuilt intentionally. Because the space between them is where the recalibration happens. Okay, friend. What a tough episode. Whew, let me tell you. Recording this and just hearing myself talk about this has just really, really made a lot of, I've got some thinking, I've got some processing. So I'm going to tell you right now that after this episode, I'm going to sit with this for a while. I may go back and review my notes and just kind of like sit in this because, like I said, sometimes this podcast is my therapy to myself. It's like I'm coaching myself, but it's also something that I need to share with you, the listener, because if you choose to go through the purpose over paycheck, this is the journey you're going to have. This is the stuff that no one talks about. All right. Okay. So in the next episode, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about why purpose isn't free, but neither is staying stuck. And we're going to learn how to understand the real cost of both of these. As I always say, is if this episode resonates with you, I invite you to click that follow button on the podcast, leave a comment, and continue to stay with me on this journey. But I want you to remember, you don't need to rush this space, friend. You don't need to rush this space. What you need to do, okay? What you need to do is you need to respect it. All right, friend. We'll talk soon.